Welcome back to Rabid Noise on Rabid Radio. My guest on the program now is the one and only Igor Cavalera. How's it going tonight, man?
Great. How's it going?
Yeah, really good, dude. Really good. And it's great to catch up with you. So, the new Cavalera Conspiracy album, Pandemonium, is a very different album from the previous two, as it's faster and more aggressive. Was that the plan when you were going into it?
Not really. I have to say that we didn't have any kind of plans on how this album would sound or even the direction for it. And it did happen once we recorded the first 2 or 3 songs. I remember me and Max looking back at each other and going like, let's keep doing this, this fast thing. It really feels really good. And of course we had some demos and stuff that were going back and forth. So we tried to pick as much of the fast stuff from the demos, and then at the end, when we looked, the whole album was more based on the kind of like the vibe, more aggressive, more fast. So it did happen in the studio. It was not something that we planned before.
That's cool, man. It's a great album to drive to, I got to say that. So how's the writing process for Cavalera Conspiracy? Is it usually just you and Max in a room getting together?
No, not really. It starts with a few demos that me and Max, we exchange. And it's very simple stuff with just some riffs and some beats. And then when we go in the studio, we try to turn those demos into songs. But at the same time that we were writing, we are recording. So I have to say that it's quite fast and quite different than what I have done in the past, where I would go into a studio and then rehearse the songs until it was done and then only then record. With Cavalera, it's different. We just go in and we record as we write, and it's pretty much capturing that first vibe of it. So it's quite fun to do it too.
You can definitely feel that kind of spontaneous energy in there.
And then also, I think it's, it has to do also with the engineer. John Gray, he was really good capturing that. Because sometimes you can play live in a room and it will not sound, it will sound some kind of separated. But he kept it really, really well in the sense that it does feels like there's a live band playing in the record rather than a bunch of different things put together like a collage.
Not a lot of bands do that these days, do they?
I don't know, man. I have to say that I keep hearing different stories about bands, even like crazy stuff. Like I heard that there's a metal band that would record their stuff slow and then speed things up so it will sound very tight, and those kind of things. They're crazy. For me, I think the coolest thing is it's the live performance rather than sounding perfect, and then when you go play live, you're a complete fiasco. So I don't really understand certain ways of recording.
Yeah, neither do I. But that does sound pretty crazy, like speeding things up. It sounded like everything would sound like chipmunks. Yeah,
but it's not even like they do in a way that it doesn't really affect the tuning of it. So it does, it makes it perfect. But then again, this band is in a lot of trouble when they're going to play their show,
Yeah, I could imagine. So you were saying before you live in England now. Do you guys, when you're preparing for Cavalera Conspiracy album, do you send ideas to each other beforehand before you head into the studio?
Yeah, we definitely do that. Max usually send me a bunch of riffs, stuff that he does at his home, like really, really simple, like with some drum machines recording just to keep the tempo. And then sometimes I send him some beats that I work in the studio. And that's how it's the early beginning of any Cavalera record.
Do you usually write and record more songs than what end up on the album?
Not really. I mean, there's tons of ideas that don't make it to the album, but the songs itself, I would say that everything we did in the studio ended up being in the album. There was nothing left out,
As I was saying before, each Cavalera album, it seems to have its own style and sound. Where do you think you guys will go next for, say, album number 4? Have you got an idea, or?
Actually, I have to say that in the last tour I did, me and Max, we spoke a bit about the new Cavalera, how we wanted somehow, to do it. We also been speaking about doing a project, just me and him, as like just drums and guitars and vocals. So those things are always popping up in our heads, you know. So, but we don't know. That's also the cool thing about it. Until we get to the studio, we don't know how it's gonna be, how it's gonna sound, or how it's gonna end up. We have a lot of ideas, and from those ideas, when we get to the studio, they become songs.
That's awesome, man, because it's really seems like you guys work spontaneously, and you don't pigeonhole yourself. Like, you go in there with sort of just a clean slate and let your imagination run wild. That's really cool, man.
Yeah, and I mean, to do that also, I have to say, it does. You need to be very connected with the person to be able to do those things in a more spontaneous way. You do need to have a really strong musical connection, so you can really push each other at the spot to do things, rather than you know, just wait for things to happen.
I guess being your brother too, you guys have been jammed together for years and years. You know, you'd probably know how each other work.
Yeah, that also, it is a big part of it. You know, I have to say that, you know, we do have certain chemistry that it's very easy to work with each other, in the sense that we don't need to talk too much. We just look at each other and we know exactly where we wanted to go with certain things, you know, live and in the studio.
It's an amazing thing about music, hey? How just,
yeah,
it's like how you can communicate without words.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that we learned very early, you know, when we started with Sepultura back when we were 14, 13 years old. You know, that's how we used to connect, you know, and put our energy into the music.
Well, you keep yourself busy musically with, you know, your other project, Mix Hell, which is more electronic. How'd your fascination start with like electronic music?
Well, actually, I have to say that I always been very fascinated with different ways of drumming, and electronic things always attracted me from the early, like, industrial days, you know, like bands like Godflesh or Ministry. And then nowadays, what I do with Mix Hell, they still influenced by that. It's not something that I just woke up and I was like, I have to do this Mix Hell thing. It was something that over the years I was trying to find certain ways and certain people that I could do something like this, like something that it was different musically, but also represent a lot of my research as a drummer, as with drum beats and things like that. When
you go and work on a Mix Hell, the project, or you're writing songs for that, how do you usually approach that compared to what you would with, you know, Cavalera?
I have to say that it's very different, because the way I write music with Mix Hell, it's me and my wife, and she does a lot of the synths and a lot of the studio work. So it's a bit more, less like what we're talking about, less about being a band live, and more about cutting a lot of stuff and trying different things, different sounds, until we find something that it's more like a song. So it's more like a studio work rather than a live performance. And then later on, we try to recreate those things live. But they're very different from each other, like what I do with Cavalera and Mix Hell, even in the studio. I
really dig the Mix Hell stuff as well, because, you know, I've come from a background where it's industrial, like as you mentioned before, like Ministry and things like that. So I can definitely hear that in there, and I really like it. I guess it must be pretty amazing for you to be able to experiment with both sides of the coin, really, hey?
Yeah, I mean, and also I have to say it's very special, because we do have, you know, the chance to collaborate with certain people like Greg from Dillinger Escape Plan with Mix Hell. It makes the project very open also, in the sense that it's not one style of music. It's even hard sometimes for us to put a label on what we do with Mix Hell. We know it's electronic influence, but it's hard to pin one style to it. It's many styles. So that's one of the things that I find that it's very special about it.
Yeah, I found that too, listening to it. And it's very open to interpretation as well. So yeah, it's really cool, man. Well, my band actually played with you guys in Brisbane back in 2012, and it was such a memorable show for me personally, and it was great sharing the stage with you guys. Do you have one show or tour throughout your career that's gone down as the most memorable?
It's hard, you know. I have to say, we're really lucky that we had lots of those, rather than just picking up one or so. I don't know. There's so many good shows in our, when I look back in our history, from Cavalera Conspiracy to Mix Hell to Sepultura. It's like it seems like I have a big collection of good shows, and that's priceless, I have to say, because it does means a lot to me.
Do you reckon you'll ever release a book telling the stories about your tours and things like that yourself?
I don't know. Max just released his, and it's really cool to see his vision on the whole, his side of the story. It's really cool. But for me, I haven't really had any ideas on doing that. Maybe in the future I would, but nowadays I have no desire on putting out a book or a documentary or anything like that. But maybe in the future it will be something that I would, focus on, because it is quite a cool story, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely, man. And I'd be definitely keen to see or hear whatever you've got to put together, because that would be cool. Can we expect to see you guys tour down here in the near future?
I hope, man. That's part of the big plan. It's to make it 2015 a lot of touring with Cavalera, and hopefully Australia will be part of this for sure, because we had a really good time last time we were there.
Yeah, it was great, man. It was cool. I saw you at the big day out, and then in Brisbane the night after. So that was it was cool. Two different sets. It was really fun, man.
Nice.
Well, so what's next for Cavalera Conspiracy apart from big year of touring?
That's it. Putting out the record, then doing lots of shows with it, and then I think that's it for our next year, and in the closer future. What it looks like, it's going to be a lot of work.
Awesome, man. Well, I really wish you dudes the best, and hopefully we'll see you guys next year. So we're going to go to the track Bonsai Kamikaze from Pandemonium now. Thanks so much for hanging us with us tonight, Igor, and hopefully see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Thanks for the support.